Well, 2 nice days in a row in the eastern part of the United States. I wonder who we pleased up in the heavens to pull that off. But we do have a front with some clouds and showers on the way before it turns colder for Wednesday night into Thursday. The middle of the country is going to be dealing with severe weather and heavy rain, so we'll be talking about that and oh so much more on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, brought to you by our affiliate Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, which you can pretty much run it off your mobile device, and it's easy to install, and you can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the descriptor to this podcast. And if one were to purchase this or anything else from the Tempest website, because they have all sorts of cool weather gadgets and gizmos in smart weather fashion, one should use the coupon code, which is winter 2324. If one does use that coupon code, what will one get?
Um, what will one get? Let me see. A nice round number would be 10%. I'll
Well,
say 10%.
10% off, yes.
Yes.
And
Okay.
at least it eats away, it gives you, eats the sales tax. Oh, excuse me. That was unexpected. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Sorry for the late start, just a minor technical glitch on my part. Welcome to everybody on the chat board, and for those of you who are lurking in the background, because I think there's maybe a new person that might be lurking in the background tonight for the first time. Well, we welcome you, and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Why? Because this way you won't miss us. We're on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. The occasional Friday and Saturday, should a storm be on the way or in progress, we may throw in an extra show or two. And if you like the show, do by all means please hit the like button, because we're very touchy here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We like to be liked.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
My Facebook page just recently we hit 17,000 likes.
Yes, you did. You have never mind. I'm sorry. Let's sorry.
I know
Maybe
you
I should.
you
Maybe
left
I
me in
should.
your dust. You left me in your dust a long time ago.
Maybe I should unlike you, and
Oh,
this way you'll go down to 6,999.
no,
But
thank you, Joe.
I wouldn't do that. I'm not the sort of creature that unlikes other people. So anyhow, gorgeous day up and down the East Coast. I mean, I had a low of 32 this morning. No frost though, not that I saw. A low of 32 and a high of 72. I love these really cold mornings and these 40 to 50, 40 to 45 degree temperature jumps during the day. I've noticed that the biggest temperature jumps occur from 9 a.m. till noon. And you'll jump, we go from 32 and then suddenly it's 45, and then look again a little while later and it's 54. It just happens very, very quickly here in North Georgia.
Well, it only got down. Only he said, it got down to 36 this morning here in Putnam Valley. 33 the previous morning, and if I'm not incorrect, Renata told me that because I hadn't had a chance to look at the Upton site, but I believe tonight we are under a freeze watch.
That's for tomorrow night into Thursday
Tomorrow?
morning.
I say to myself, how could it possibly be tonight? Maybe because tonight we've got clouds moving in, and we also have, of course, the chance for a bit of precipitation by daybreak tomorrow morning. It appears.
Right. Well, West Hampton got to 27 this morning. And I know Bill Uber's on the chat board tonight. He got to 25 where he is in Suffolk County. Yes, there is a freeze watch up, which means that there could be a freeze, so we'll watch it.
Don't get caught with your plants down tomorrow night, folks.
Very nice. I sort of expected you would go down that particular road. And
Yes.
Johnny Quest, who just hit the super chat tip jar. Thank you, Johnny Quest, for doing that. And he says he had a low of double twos this morning. Snake eyes, double
Wow.
twos. You put it in my head now. I got to bring those back. Double twos.
double deuce.
Yeah, snake eyes. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, still nothing, I would say nothing catastrophic happening weather-wise in the east. All the action looks like it's going to be right in the middle, up and down the Mississippi Valley back to the Missouri River Valley back to the plains, starting on Thursday and lasting probably through the weekend. So, uh, big rain, severe weather there. I think the big issue weather-wise will be, uh, well, what is this warm front that's going to set up somewhere in the northern mid-Atlantic states? So this is going to be one of those deals in the spring that if you're north of that warm front, you're going to be in the 50s, if you're or even 40s, and I mean, depending on clouds. And south of that warm front, it's probably going to be in the 80s. So where that front sets up, and more importantly, how long does it take to move through north? What if it doesn't move north? What if it gets stuck somewhere across central New Jersey and central Pennsylvania, like they like to do? It's going to make for some very difficult forecasts coming up for the weekend and into the first part of next week, I believe.
Well, it'll be interesting to see for the second half of the weekend into early next week is when it appears that our part of the country, the tri-state New York City area, will be transitioning from cool to unseasonably mild or downright warm for the beginning of next week. We'll see where that warm front goes and whether or not that actually happens.
Who gets it? If there's any kind of onshore flow, that's gonna, it's gonna be one of
That's
these.
it.
You can walk a handful of miles and go, take a 30-degree temperature drop or a temperature rise, depending on which direction you're going to. I don't have that issue here. We've got some nice weather across the southeast for the next several days. No rain in the forecast, which is really good. Get to do some yard work. Yeah, I went out and did some weeding this afternoon. My God, they're everywhere, Joe. I mean, it's amazing how quickly they come up. The weeds grow here, and I'm talking about 2 and 3 feet high, and it's only the middle of April.
Yeah, Joe, it's that time of the year. What can I tell you? And everything is awakening really quick. I mean, to me, it seems that my grass has gotten 10% greener in color, shades of green, in the last just in the last few days, and I'm beginning to notice ever so slightly budding beginning to appear on many of the trees. So all we need is that temperature to shoot up into the 70s or 80s at the beginning of next week, and everything is going to be bursting out all over.
Yeah, we're already past that over here. Although, depending on where you are here in the mountains, of course, it makes a big difference. If you're up at 3,000 feet or 4,000 feet, spring takes a little longer to get there. I was talking with somebody about that last week because, just sort of comparing how much, how green it is down at the lower elevations versus as he's at this particular person is at 4,100 feet. And, it's still, it's just now starting to, to bud out where he is, while down where I am at 2,200, it's pretty much all green everywhere. But anyway, Ted Musillo, thank you for hitting the tip jar tonight. Uh, toss it right into the tip jar. We appreciate that. So let's look at while we're waiting for the next couple of days to play out, things are actually still pretty quiet across the U.S. There's not a whole lot happening. So the highlight on the watches and warnings in the aquamarine color that you see across uh, Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts into Connecticut, the Hudson Valley, northern New Jersey, pockets of central and western Pennsylvania into Ohio and Michigan. That is where we have a freeze watch up. And we also have some freeze warnings up and frost advisories in southeast Minnesota and western Wisconsin. And that's really about it. They did put out a special weather statement today regarding the fact that the fire danger from the dry conditions. So I guess that's the one downside this time of year is that although you would think that with all the rain you'd have, it'd be an awfully difficult to start a wildfire in the Northeast or in the Mid-Atlantic states.
Well, this is the time of the year when you see red flag warnings in and around our area. Usually, we have a spate of warm, dry, breezy days. And I think, Joe, when we get to early next week, we'll certainly have the warmth. And whether or not we can see the dew points drop to a level where um, they might consider putting a red flag. But again, also another thing would be winds. So we'll see whether or not we get some gusty winds to go along with those warm, dry conditions that are anticipated for early next week. I mean, it was dry out there today, but kind of coolish, a little bit of a breeze. I don't think we really had that much of a threat for brush fires, but we'll raise the temperatures up a few degrees, and we'll be right in that ballpark again by early next week.
Well, we were in a bit of the sweet spot today was from Maine down to Florida because there's this wrapped up storm, very well defined on the satellite loop. You could see it there, that big comma-shaped swirl that's out at about 65 degrees west, passing north of Bermuda. And in between that and the cold front that's to the west, you got some subsidence. It was pretty much blue sky and sunshine. Clouds streaming eastward kind of hit that dry air and they just sort of weakened and fell apart. But that's going to eventually not be the case. This is the next cold front that you see with the cloud cover running from the St. Lawrence Valley through Ohio into Illinois and Missouri. You're seeing a few lightning strikes here and there, but nothing really substantial. And also a few lightning strikes up in parts of northern Michigan and into Lake Huron. And that's about it. And we've got a little east west band of hefty thunderstorms and lightning strikes going on in parts of central Texas. And that is where SPC has a very small severe thunderstorm watch that covers a handful of counties in the great state of Texas there. Inside that small area of marginal to slight risk, and you'll notice there's another tiny, tiny area of marginal risk further southwest than that near the Mexican border. And we've got a marginal risk from northeastern Illinois into western Michigan. Uh, not seeing much activity going on in that zone at the moment. And going forward, we're going to see activity begin to pick up. Now, tomorrow, SPC's got an area of general thunderstorms from northern Maryland and northern Delaware, northeastward up into Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and everybody in between. So, I mean, I kind of thought, you know what, you get a rumble or two of thunder, it's not going to be anything, that you're going to have to evacuate for. Let's
That
put it
area
that
has
way.
actually has increased a little bit from yesterday. Yesterday it was about only about half as big as what we're seeing depicted today.
Well, Joe, this goes back to the fact that SPC watches this show almost continuously. They have it on a reel so that, if they miss something, they could watch it on the replay. So, we've been talking about the fact that there could be a rumble or two of thunder here for days now. So it's nice to see that they picked up on that. We've got marginal risk in West Texas. Only kidding, folks. Marginal risk in West Texas and across into Oklahoma. Now, SPC, and I say this all the time when it shows up in SPC's long range, you got to pay attention. And SPC has had several days in their long range for the last 3 days, and now one of them has moved into their shorter range period. So we've got the first map, and they've added an enhanced risk of severe weather for parts of, uh, let's call it the eastern part of northwest Texas. How's that? The hat, what I always like to call the hat. And also that extends up into Oklahoma and into parts of central Kansas. Larger area of slight risk and even larger area of marginal risk that pushes up into Nebraska. Tomorrow, when they update this, they will indicate tornado risk, and I imagine that there's going to be at least a 2 to 5% area being indicated for this area. And then we go to day 4. Let me just get this to stop moving there. So day 4 now is Friday into Saturday. Northeast Texas up into the Mississippi and Missouri River valleys and further north up into Iowa. A very large area of 15%. And Joe, I suspect that we're going to see this probably expanded a bit and maybe throw in an enhanced risk in there somewhere. and that's day 4. Day 5, it comes back down a little southwest because one low is moving up out of the plains and heading northeastward. A second low is going to develop. And now we've got another area on Saturday from north central Texas northeastward up through Missouri. And on day 6, that moves up from north to northeast Texas and up the Mississippi River Valley into Illinois and southern Wisconsin. And I think it's also a good time to point out that when we look at WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, uh, they've gotten even more bullish on the rainfall that they expect up and down the Mississippi River Valley, Joe. We've got areas here of 4 to 5 inches in the orange area. There's one area here of 5 inches plus in Arkansas. So we're talking about big rains here that are going to start sometime later on Thursday in some areas and then spread eastward on Friday and over the weekend. So the middle of the country is going to get a lot of water. Not so much in the east. We're talking about maybe a tenth to maybe a quarter of an inch from the coast north and west, and less than a tenth as you go down the coast, and then right through the southeast and into Florida. Hardly any precip over the next 7 days.
Well, for our area, there is that again that risk for general thunderstorm activity. It seems to me that what we're going to see here tomorrow will be just spotty light rain in the morning, and then maybe there'll be enough stuff, enough warming, enough instability to pop a stray thunderstorm or two in a few places. Let's say from tomorrow afternoon, say 3, 4 o'clock, on to about nightfall. But they're going to really be few and far between. So. Um, if there is any convection tomorrow in our area, it's most likely going to come in the afternoon hours. If there's any precipitation at all, we'll see it, around daybreak, early in the day tomorrow. Then there'll be maybe a little bit of a let up, and then tomorrow afternoon, say after 3 or 4 o'clock, we might see in one or two spots a thunderstorm pop up, or if not that, maybe a rumble or two of thunder. So no big deal for us, but. And really after that, it turns dry and fair. Looks like right on into at least the end of the week, and that's nice.
I drew a big circle around that rain area, Joe, to illustrate that this was last year at this time, the beginning of what was a really serious drought that dried up parts of the Mississippi River. They couldn't get barges to go up and down because the water just basically disappeared or was so low that they couldn't get any boats down. Well, now that drought's over the winter time and certainly now in the spring, as you often say, the checkbook is being balanced.
It always seems to happen that way. It always seems to happen that people, they go through a protracted spell of something, either wet weather or dry weather, and they say if you're in the dry slot, you say, "Oh my goodness, we could use the rain." Be careful of what you wish for or hope for, because sometimes you make up for all that you've lost over the last, let's say 2, 3 years. You make up for it, let's say, in only a few months, and sometimes that can lead to some very bad flooding conditions. If you don't believe me, ask anyone who lives out in California. They certainly have, more than made up for the severe drought that they were in, 3 or 4 years ago, with all that rain from those atmospheric rivers that have been consistently hitting the West Coast each winter over the last couple of winters.
Well, you'll be happy to know that WPC has fixed their snow maps. So there is a 20 to 30% chance for at least 2 inches in northern Maine and in New Brunswick, in the interior of New Brunswick, not down near the Atlantic Ocean, but way inland. Um, high probability for at least 4. I'm sorry, that's the probability of at least 4 that I have up here. So let's go to 2 and just see. Oh, there it is, 50% or higher for northern Maine. So Caribou gets to have maybe one more snowfall before this is all said and done. And then out in the west, you can see it's pretty spotty. Some mountaintops in the Cascades and the Sierra Nevadas, and also in the northern and central Rockies. A few places have relatively low, some of them up to 50%, but just relatively low probability for at least 2 inches. So let's
And
check out.
Vincent Croce says, "What? No 50 inches in Boston?"
No, it just didn't happen. I know that it was almost a certitude that it was going to happen, Joe. Somehow a miracle occurred and it's not happening.
Yep.
That, that's, that is probably one, there were a couple of times this winter where we had ridiculous snow maps and they became extra ridiculous as we moved through the month of March and into the beginning of April. So, it was one last gasp of the models to put on a show that you knew was total science fiction.
Mark G doesn't get the joke here. He said, "When 50 in Boston?" He obviously was not tuned in the night when we were showing that one map from Pivotal Weather that was indicating
Right.
absurd snow amounts. So,
Well, and of course, all snow lovers heard that, and it's like they're jumping, but that was obviously never going to happen. All right, so let's looking at the upper air tonight. And of course, if you notice, there's a nice short-looking shortwave that's moving across the western lakes. This is our cold front for tomorrow, and there's some decent definition, and the atmosphere is cold and unstable. So again, there could be a rumble or two of thunder when the cold front goes by, and we've got energy off of California that comes in. And this is going to be the catalyst for the storm system that's going to develop in the two storm systems that are going to develop in the plains. The first one on Thursday night, Friday, you can see that short wave lifts up into the Dakotas. And then there's a second arm of energy that drops down into the southwest and makes a cutoff low that goes into Kansas by the time we get to Sunday. That one, I think we got to pay close attention to, Joe. That's a bit of a powerhouse in the southern stream that actually strengthens as it moves, as it lifts northeastward. So, this could be an interesting Saturday night, Sunday from the standpoint of severe weather east of the track of that upper low. So, I would say, in Oklahoma, north central Texas, Oklahoma, up into Kansas and Missouri. I'm going to keep an eye on this because this could be a bit of a powerhouse. But in the east, you've got a ridge building beginning on Saturday, and that continues to strengthen going into next week. That's all fine and dandy aloft, but sometimes, especially in the spring, the surface doesn't always match up exactly with regards to that. There's actually a little bit of a short wave and a front probably on Tuesday coming out, going into the eastern lakes and lifting up into eastern Canada. But then once that goes by, there's another big ridge. So it's ridge in the east, trough in the west as we go to the last days of April and through the first part of May, Joe. So it all comes down to backdoor cold fronts and sea breezes. Um, the snow was a joke, Jimmy Z. Oh God, they're all there. They're all jumping. Okay, so here's your front goes by. Cold high builds in. Not much happening Wednesday night into Thursday, but you can see during the day on Thursday, big blossoming of moisture with a low in West Kansas. This is where we're going to have our severe weather issues, as we showed you with SPC. That low goes up. Then the next one comes out and forms, and you see it here on Saturday in northeast New Mexico, and it goes into western Kansas. And the GFS is pretty bullish there with some storms and big rain amounts in eastern Oklahoma, eastern Kansas, and into Missouri, and eventually up into Illinois as that low heads to the northeast. And I mean, I'm looking at this run here, Joe, and I'm seeing, a warm front on Saturday with dying showers with it. So I'm guessing Saturday probably is going to have clouds around, maybe a shower, maybe two showers scattered about. And the question is there stuff lingering around in a few places on Sunday? It's kind of hard for me to find where this warm front is, judging from what judging from the way the surface is drawn. It's very, very hard to find. So let's see what, there's a squall line, by the way, in the lower Mississippi Valley on Monday, and then that dies out. But let me just take a look. Let's just look and see what kind of temperatures the GFS model does. Uh, let's see. We could do the shaded. I guess the shaded we see better. So, all right. So let's go to Saturday, 50s and fifth. Well, clouds and an ocean wind in 50s. Sunday, we've got upper 60s and low 70s. And you see pockets of 80s in Virginia. That's Sunday. Oh, look at this. Monday, Joe, it looks like it has 80s pushing up into central New Jersey and southern Pennsylvania. And Tuesday, it's right up through all of New Jersey to New York City with the 80, 80 plus temperatures. So, unless there's a sea breeze or a warm front issue or a backdoor cold front, the warm up looks like it's coming. So it may not go all the way up into northern New England, though. And upstate New York, but definitely for downstate and places further south down into New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and so on. We'll have some very warm spring weather to enjoy come early next week.
Do you think that the next disturbance, the next frontal, the next frontal system, and now we're looking way out. We're looking out actually for next week, a week from now, that may have enough potency to bring the possibility of some significant shower or thunderstorm activity our way. I'm getting all choked up just thinking about it.
Shortwave Tuesday, but not the most impressive shortwave in the world. That front doesn't look like it looks like the bulk of the energy is spent over the Great Lakes, and by the time it reaches the East Coast, it's a whole lot weaker, and then that goes out. And let's see down the road. I mean, there's not much happening down the road, really. No storms, at least there's no big soaking rains, no 3, 4, 5 inch rain events to look ahead to. We may actually be going into a stretch of below average precipitation going forward.
My lawn can use that. There are parts of my lawn that are still kind of spongy.
Ugh, spongy's not good.
Hmm.
All right, so I did bring up the Pacific sea surface. Well, it's actually both the Atlantic and Pacific in terms of the temperature anomalies. And just to point out, where we are with the dying El Nino. There's still remnants of it, but it is weakening pretty quickly here. We've got slightly above normal temperatures now across the equatorial Pacific, and you can see these pockets of colder water that are showing up in the northern Pacific as well, and in the northeast Pacific outside the La Nina zone. But everything seems to be underway for this thing, this El Nino to gradually die out and for a La Nina to take over. But there's some debate on just exactly what kind of La Nina we're going to have. Is it going to be a weak one? Is it going to be a strong one? And we were talking about this yesterday. The fact that the European model is not really showing enough a strong La Nina. It's showing a rather weak La Nina um, getting underway. But we'll see about that. And meanwhile, the tropical Atlantic. You talked about the MDR yesterday, the major development region. Uh, Ocean water temperatures there are running 3, 4, even 5 degrees Celsius above normal around the Cape Verde Islands, and also further north up around the Canary Islands, and then west across the tropical Atlantic. It's mostly 2 to 3 above normal. There's a pocket of below normal temperatures, and actually where the Gulf Stream is, interestingly enough, it's all below normal in terms of temperatures, Joe, and not just barely below normal, but several degrees Celsius below normal from off the North Carolina coast. Oh, those blue streaks from North Carolina east out into the Atlantic. That's where the Gulf Stream normally is, and the ocean water temperatures there are not that warm. The Gulf Stream is not that warm, so it's going to be. There's been talk about what all of this ocean warming is going to do to the Gulf Stream. I wonder if that's what we're starting to see here.
You know, I was just going to say, you're right. It doesn't. The Gulf Stream doesn't look overly impressive in terms of temperature. Right off the Azores, though, that's a nice pool of relatively warm water, and maybe perhaps that might begin to widen or spread as we move into the upcoming late spring and summer.
Yeah. We'll find out soon enough. Well, one thing's for sure, that coastal storm that's out there just north of Bermuda is upwelling a lot of this water in here too. So that's not going to do much to warm things up. But again, this was a what's the date on this? April 22nd. So it's actually from yesterday. that this was put up by ospo.noaa.gov. And if you want to look at sea surface temperature maps, you can just Google Pacific sea surface temperature anomalies. And actually, I could even just I'll put the link up for everybody because that's the kind of guy I am. I'm going to put the link up for those of you who like to look at these sorts of things. I put the link up on the chat board, and there it is. So that's I think that pretty much covers it. There's not a whole lot more happening that we could talk about. We're in this, this is a quiet time in between seasons, in between the end of the winter season and waiting for hurricane season to start. So while we're waiting, Joe, it's time to play Briller Jeopardy,
Thriller Jeopardy.
which you have.
Yes, I do. I do have them tonight. Let me just go and get the questions, which I
By
know all.
all means.
Are you waiting with bated breath for this?
Isn't it true, Mr. Mason?
Now, I'm just checking out here. Yeah, I already did that. All right. So, here on this new series of Briller Jeopardy, average annual precipitation by state in inches. Now, I'm making the assumption this is still April. Average annual precipitation. Oh, no, annual. Of course, it can't be just April, though. It has to be all the 11 other months. Average annual precipitation by state in inches. So, in other words, I'll give you the state, and you tell me this is the average now for the entire state, the amount of precipitation that falls in inches.
Oh my God. All right. Before you do that, Leon Verbitsky hit the tip jar. Thank you, Leon, for hitting super chat tonight. Appreciate it. Um, okay, let's try it.
Okay, well, the first one on the list here, first state, again, you have to pick out the average annual precipitation for each state in inches. Alabama.
Alabama. All right. I'm going to I'll say 55.
That's a pretty good guess, Joe. It's not
Uh,
right, but it's a pretty good guess.
well, Anthony says 50.
Well,
And you got a
you're
whole
better
bunch
than
of people that are
that.
way Alabama, folks. It's on the Gulf Coast. Okay. Chris Alley says 58. Mike Waterhouse 57.
Well,
Chuck
who
Card
said 58?
Chris Alley.
She wins.
He wins.
He wins. Oh, Christopher. I'm sorry.
Christopher Alley.
Sorry.
58.
58
Okay.
inches.
All right. Next.
Next one. Our vast 49th state, Alaska.
Oh my God. See, and that's tricky because on the North Slope, precip is really light. On the South Coast and Juneau, precip is really heavy. And you want to average it over the whole state? Wouldn't even know how to do that. So I'll just take a wild guess. So um, I'm going to say, since the northern part of Alaska probably gets, you know, most likely under 5 inches of liquid a year, maybe less. The bottom part of the state gets near the coast gets 60, 50 or 60. I'll say 60. I'll say 30.
30 is not a bad guess. It's a little bit more than what
Well,
actually.
I mean, how do you guess this? I mean,
No,
you're talking about a state that's bigger than Texas, with all sorts of weird climates and mountains and the coast and everything else.
no, it's got
So,
every.
all right. So let's see what the folks on the board are putting up. Um, I'm sorry. What did I say? 30, 30. What did I say?
30.
35, 30.
You said 30. Mike
Okay.
Waterhouse, you're a little bit too much with 36.
Mike Waterhouse is 69.
Too much.
Anthony says 39. Chuck
Still too.
Card still too much. Chuck
Norm
Cardillo
Roberts,
30. So it's
Norm
less than 30.
very close with 25.
So it's less than 30.
Yes.
Okay. Um, Norm Roberts at 25. What, 23?
Who said 23?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
You win.
Okay.
Okay,
And
Alaska
Mike
20.
Mike McGuire said 23. So,
Yeah.
all right, what's next?
Arizona.
Arizona. See, now this is challenge. It's very challenging. So Arizona, you've got deserts in Arizona where it rains probably once every 2 years. So one, maybe the wettest part of the state would be, maybe 15. I'll say 10 inches.
Um, Again, close, but not that low.
Frank R
75.
says Frank
And,
R says 11. Anthony says 14.
and that's it. 14.
14. Okay.
Okay, so number 4 is Arkansas.
Arkansas. Uh, Arkansas. So they're in the lower Mississippi Valley. Um, I'll say
Now, if this helps, I'm just going to remind you, Alabama was 58.
I'm going to say I'll say 54.
You have the right idea, Joe, but a little bit more than what is the actual.
So I'm too high.
Yes.
Maggie P said 50.
But Chuck Cardillo got it right on the nose with
51, and Frank Scalera got 51.
yeah.
Okay, and next.
This is the last one. We don't even have a bonus tonight. This
Okay.
is number 5, and it's California.
Oh God. Um. All right. So, Joe, I couldn't even fathom a guess here because the north coast of California, it could be 60 or 70 inches north of San Francisco up that way. Then you go just inland and it's zero, and you're talking about an average for the whole state. I'll say 23.
Joe, you're in snake country with that guess.
Really? Really? I should get the bell rung just because I was close.
I will do that.
Well, Patrick Darcy said 22.
22 is the number according to the chairman for California.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things. It's like, how do you know, a state that has deserts that get rain every 2 years. It has a coastline in the north coast where they could get 40 or 50 inches or more. And then you just go inland on where the mountain and you get the mountain shadow and they get nothing. So, but it was an interesting exercise.
I believe you are correct. Yes.
I don't think I think I did pretty good.
Well, Prime Minister Reuben Fairchild is upset because he got one right and it wasn't mentioned. I'm
All,
sorry.
all right, all right, PM. Which one did you get right? Which one did Prime Minister Reuben Fairchild? It was not the one where you said 118. I don't know California. You had 118, so you know you didn't get that right. He said 14 on Arizona. Is that
Okay.
was Arizona 14?
I don't know. I've already closed out that, but
All right.
um,
Well, I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy. All right, the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the description to this podcast. Use the coupon code Winter2324. If you do, you will get.
you'll get 10% off. And let's also thank the people who hit the tip jar tonight. And that would be Leon Probitsky, Johnny Quest, who kicked everything off, and Ken Musillo. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Nighty night.
Nighty night.